so proud of him. I have to be honest. I'm a bit worried about our daughter getting into college. It's so competitive out there, and I feel overwhelmed with where to start. I completely understand. Listen, I felt the same way. And then I met Dr. Gina of Education Prep Centers. She put a plan in place that helped our son stand out in the admissions process and that gave us a peace of mind for how to create a financial roadmap for his future. Wow, that's great. Sounds like I need to give her a call. Yes, she definitely helped our son find the perfect college, meet all his deadlines, and helped us feel less anxious about the whole process. You need to reach out to her. Just check out educationprepcenters.com and set up a complimentary assessment with Dr. Gina. You'll be so glad you did. Education Prep Centers. College admissions made easy.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to No Judgment here. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Tish Ross. Scott Odom was diagnosed with bone cancer when he was just 14 years old, which resulted in the loss of his right leg above his knee. Despite his challenges, Scott went on to become the first above-knee amputee to play in a professional basketball game. He also co-founded a nonprofit, ABI, which hosts benefits to raise money to help kids with cancer and their families. Scott wrote a children's book titled Me and JC, which shares his personal, powerful story and shares a message with children. Scott has also been featured in many media outlets. He was awarded the Community Hero Award, Fox 4 Hometown Hero, CBS Texan with Character, and so much more. Scott has also been in numerous magazines such as the Los Angeles Times, ESPN Online, Slam Magazine, and numerous newspaper articles. Scott has spoken to kids and people all over the country to share his story and his testimony to give others hope by what God has done in his life. Meet my guest and my new friend, Scott Odom. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I mean, I'm serious when I say that after reading your bio in your website, which is www.scottodom.com, there is so much good in there. It's so much that you have done with overcoming your battle with cancer. And I want to get into all of that, your nonprofit, how that came about, all the things that you do there for others. But before we go into that, I want to dive in, and I know we don't have a lot of time, an hour is going to fly by, but I want to dive into how this all started, how you found out you had cancer and what that was like as a child, what that was like for your parents, how you dealt with that in school, reactions of others, dealing with those feelings and things like that. So I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah. So I grew up in Everman, actually. So I was a big sports kid. I would always watch, the Cowboys or the guys on TV. And that's what I wanted to be, was a professional athlete.
Mhm.
So, I mean, ever since they could get me in Pee Wee sports, I was either playing football, baseball, or basketball. And then when we weren't playing there, the kids in the neighborhood, we would get together and play in the street. We were those kids in the street, always in the way.
Yes.
So breaking windows, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So, but it was around the age 10, my knee started to hurt. And I just played it off like, aches and pains you kind of get as an athlete and stuff,
Right.
are playing around. And so I kind of didn't say anything for a while. And then it got to where it was getting pretty bad, where it would ache at night, kind of like a throbbing pain. And so I told my mom, and she took me to the family doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in there long. He just said, "Oh, this is growing pains. It's very common. It's nothing out of the ordinary. Just kind of take it easy, and then once it starts feeling better, you can go back doing what you're doing."
Mm-hmm.
Did that, went away when I wasn't on it, and then it was kind of a gradual thing where my knee would be fine for a while. I would go back playing really hard all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, thinking it's just overuse, doing too much, let off hope for a little bit. So from 10 to 14, this was a on and off thing.
Okay.
And my mom maybe took me to one or two other doctors, and again, growing pains, pulled ligaments, maybe nothing to be concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
And right before high school starts, in 8th grade, we moved to Joshua. And so, and that's where I actually live there now, but we moved to Joshua. And so I start baseball, which baseball was the sport I loved the most, or I was actually better at than all the other sports. And so I was an all-stars in baseball right before going to high school, and I hit it to the fence, and I was turning second, and I was going to try to get a triple, and my knee just gave out, and I fell once I turned second base, and knew something was wrong. So I thought, well, all right, maybe I've been hurting this time. Maybe I tore something or something bad's happened. So they took me out of the game, and she's like, "Don't worry, we'll go to the doctor tomorrow and we'll get it figured out." So we go back to the doctor. I may be in there maybe 2 minutes. Once he's in there maybe 2 minutes. He moves my knee around, presses on it. Does this hurt? Does that hurt? Yes, no. He's like, "Oh, just I don't see any structural damage. You should be fine. Here's some pain medication. Take it as needed. Stay off for about a month, and then you'll be ready to start 2-a-days for freshman football."
Mm-hmm.
Me, I'm like, sweet. All right, cool. Nothing's wrong. I'll be good to play.
Right.
So I did what he said, took some pain meds, iced it, elevated, all that stuff. And then I start freshman football practice, and the coaches were already kind of watching us and all stars in baseball. So they kind of knew some of us already.
Mm-hmm.
And then even from middle school. And so I remember I was doing 2-a-days, and just standing in line for a drill, my knee was just throbbing and throbbing and throbbing. So much to where I was having, like, my eyes were watering up because it was hurting so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were running sprints or running to do a drill, I can't run full speed. And the coaches knew I could run. I'm not like a fast guy, but they knew I could run faster than when I was running. So I just finally went to the trainer. I was like, "Man, something's up with my knee." I just went to the doctor. He said it's fine, but I was like, "There's swelling around it now." I said, "So I don't know if it's fluid or something." And he thought maybe it was fluid built up in my knee. So he sent me to the team doctor, which was Von Evans at Hughley.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to Von Evans, this was the first time out of the 4 years my knee hurt that anybody took an x-ray on my knee. And when the x-ray showed this cloud around my kneecap that he said was concerning. Looking back on it, we think he knew kind of what it was, but he just didn't tell us.
Sure.
Just, check all the boxes. So he's like, "I'm going to send you to this knee specialist. She's really good. Probably at that MRI just to get more images and see what's really going on."
Right.
So I have the MRI maybe 2 days later, and then they said the results maybe will be back in a week or two. 2 days later, high school starts, and I'm going through my first period, second period, no big deal. And then I see my mom walking down the hall, and I'm like freaking out because, like, what is my mom doing here in high school?
Right. Yeah.
And so she's like, the results are already back. We got to go. They're telling us we got to go see the doctor. And so we go see her. And I just remember going to this room, like a board meeting room, and there's one wall, it's all white of the images.
Mm-hmm.
And then she starts putting them all, and there's had to be like 20 images up there. And she's going through them all, and it's all big doctor lingo that we have no idea what she's talking about.
Right.
And she's like, "I'm very confident, probably 100% confident that you have osteosarcoma." And we're like, "What is that?"
Mm-hmm.
And then she says, "Cancer." And then at first I'm like, well, I didn't believe it because I was like, there's no way I have cancer. Like, I'm healthy, I'm young, like, kids just don't get cancer.
Right,
Or
right.
that just doesn't. I mean, I've taken care of myself, and she's like, no, if we don't do anything like now, like it's gonna spread and it's gonna be really bad. So I asked my mom to leave the room because I wanted to ask the doctor a serious question.
Mm.
Sorry, but I was really protecting my mom at the time because I was scared. I just didn't want her to. I was trying to be strong for her at the time too. So I asked her to leave the room, and I'm face to face with the doctor, and I'm like, so is this like a bad cancer? Or is this a cancer that's not as bad? Like, what's the worst that can happen with this cancer? And she's like, if we don't do anything like tomorrow and start treatment, she said it's going to spread all over your body within a year and you'll be dead.
Oh my gosh.
So that's when it really hit me like a brick. Like, this is serious.
And how old were you when
14. 14, first day of high school, I'm learning this. And so I just remember everything around me just kind of going blurry. And like, even when we're leaving, like to go to the car, I'm passing like the nurses and the secretary, and I can't make out their faces.
Mhm.
It's just, I just have tunnel vision, and I just keep thinking I'm gonna die.
Right.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just remember driving home, seeing a guy pump gas, thinking I'm never gonna be able to do that.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking my days are numbered.
Right.
So from that day on, I was just a constant fear that I had that, because that's anytime you see it on TV or anything, it's death, cancer. It's
Absolutely.
the worst you hear. And then the next day, I had to have a port put in my chest. I actually had to have 2 ports because my cancer, she said by the look of it on the MRI, it's probably been in my leg for at least 2 years.
Wow. So all that pain every time your
Yeah,
leg
it was
hurt,
cancer.
and yeah.
And that's why she said if they don't do anything soon, it's gonna, because it was
Mhm.
already showing signs that it was gonna spread. So then the anger set in
Mhm.
because I'm like, I was mad. And of course, my parents were mad because we've been to these doctors and felt like they just blew it off because I
Right.
was a young kid, active kid. So it was fearful. I was angry. I was like, this can't be real. Like, I thought sports was over for me, my dream, anything. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I thought about. I thought that was over, completely over. And I remember the oncologist coming in, and he was a young guy, and I was taller than him. And when he came in, he was all happy. He's at a children's hospital. I didn't know this at the time, but I was like, why is he so happy? Like, I'm
Mhm.
like fighting cancer. I may have cancer.
Right.
And he's like, don't worry, man, we're going to do this and that. And I was like, all right. And then my mom was like, is this beatable? Like, can this be beat?
Mhm.
And he said, yes. And just with that, yes, you can kind of breathe a little bit and like, all right. And then I was like, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. Like, whatever it is. And so that's when the whole treatment stuff started.
So how were your parents? So, you are 14, and what a sweet young 14-year-old that you were. You asked your mom to step out of the room because you wanted to ask the doctor a question, and then you find out alone in that room that if you don't do something about this tomorrow, this can spread. How does your family, how does your mom and your dad, how are they in terms of hearing that their son has cancer? I'm sure, a mess, but
Yeah.
supportive. Like you said, they were angry as well.
Mhm.
And do they share their emotions with you? I mean, do you see them in what, as a parent myself, I'm sure I would be just a mess.
Yeah. I mean, it's something we really didn't talk about just because I think we didn't want to like upset. Because I mean, me and my mom can look at each other and just know like she's upset or I'm upset. Or
Mhm.
if she
Mhm.
starts crying, I'll start crying just for whatever reason. And then my dad, he's kind of like the backbone, the strong,
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
yeah, we'll get through this.
Mhm.
He's kind of more of the optim, like, you'll be fine. We'll get through this.
Gotcha.
Kind of like, don't worry about it, but like we'll do this, whatever we got to do. And at this, he's the one working, so he has a mechanic shop, and he's been working there for over almost 40 years. And so he's working and then coming to the hospital, going back and forth, and thankfully he just had the same, which kind of eased it for, I guess, me and my mom, because my mom was the one that stayed at the hospital with me the
Mhm.
most.
Mhm.
Just knowing that he was more kind of the calm collector of it, like we can do
Yes.
this, whereas I have all these these fears and stuff going through my head. My mom, I could tell she's got it going. We just don't bring it up at him.
Gotcha.
The only time we did bring it up is when I had to have surgery, because we had to have a conversation about my surgery, because they were leaving the decision up to me on what I wanted to do surgery wise.
So your chemo you had the double port and your chemo started.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you undergo chemo, and did you have radiation?
I had just chemo, but I had they told me I had like the worst or the hardest of the chemos, and I had like 3 or 4 different kinds of chemos, just because they wanted to be really aggressive with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was getting smaller, but it was spreading, which was their fear, that it was spreading. So I initially had a big one on my kneecap.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think a month into it, I had 2 more on top of my knee, like right about on my quad. So it was starting to spread. And if it goes to your lungs, it's really hard. It can be difficult to treat. So that was a fear too. So any like breath I took, if, I had after indigestion or whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, it's in my lungs now.
Yeah.
So I'm in this constant like worry and fear that it's going to spread all over. And then being a baseball player, I'm sure guys that play baseball, I was very superstitious.
Mm-hmm.
So like putting socks on the same way, or if I had a good game, I had to do the same ritual. So
Mm-hmm.
I would sit in the bed with my knees bent, and I didn't want to leave them straight, because I felt if they were bent, the tumor couldn't go up.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas if it was straight, it could go wherever it wanted to.
Right.
So I always had my knee bent. Not to say that that's the cure to cancer or whatever, but I just felt like more at ease. Like it can only go to my knee.
Sure.
It can't go up.
As a 14-year-old, I mean, gosh,
I'll do whatever I gotta do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
then chemo started, and then it started shrinking, but then it also started growing.
Yeah. So they found 2 on top of my knee, and then they said, we need to do surgery quick, because it's gonna continue to spread. And so they said you can do a limb salvage surgery, which would save your leg. It would take all the bones out of your leg, replace it with metal rods. Said it would keep your leg, save your leg, but it would limit you on your activity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
running, compact sports, all that's kind of out of the question. And me, like an active kid, I'm like, well, that's not an option.
Right.
In my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, so what's option 2? And they said amputation. And I never heard the word amputation before. Never knew what a amputee was. Never seen one. Didn't know anything about a prosthesis.
Mm-hmm.
But they told me you'll lose your leg above the knee, but you could jump out of a plane the next day if you want. You could do whatever. It's up to you on how active you want to be. Mm-hmm. So right then, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't voice that in the room, because my mom and dad were standing there, and I didn't know what they were thinking. So I remember it was a very quiet ride on the way home, because I already had my mind made up. Like I was like, I just cut it off. Like I just want to be done with it and move on.
Right.
But so we were gonna have to have this conversation, and we really didn't know how to do it. So I was like, well, y'all, you write down what you think I should do, and I'll write down what I want to do, and we'll flip it, and then hopefully we agree. If not, then let's have a conversation type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I flipped it over, and it said cut it off, and they flipped it over and said save your leg. And so we just start crying, obviously. And I just kind of let them know, like, I don't know what it is, but like I have this peace. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, I can't explain it. I don't know. I just know, like, this has to come off. It's either going to be my life or my leg. And I would just rather be here with you guys and be here living with, half a leg, one leg,
right,
than not be here at all and take that chance. That was just me at the time thinking that, because I was so fearful.
Mm-hmm.
And I was scared they wouldn't get it all, or mistakes happen. So I was just go above where it's at, cut it off, and hopefully it's done.
Right.
With that. So they were, once they knew I was at peace with it and I wasn't gonna, struggle with it, which, at the time I was thinking that, but the struggles would come.
Right.
That they were real supportive after that with, backing me on that decision.
And so how long after that conversation was it before you actually went and had your leg amputated?
They did one more MRI, because they wanted to make sure like there was no more cancer anywhere before we did the surgery. And they actually found 2 more on top of my hip. And so they were like, you have no decision. We're just going to have to amputate your whole hip. And we're just like, it's just like bad news after bad news after bad news. And they're like, we'll do a biopsy tomorrow to make sure. But I mean, it looks the exact same. That's on top of your knee.
Right.
So we do the biopsy. I wake up from the biopsy, and my mom and dad are over the bed in the recovery crying. And And of course, when I see them crying, it's the worst. So I'm
Right.
like, oh, more cancer. And she's like, they didn't do the biopsy. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, thankfully, thank God, there was a technician or an assistant in the operating room, and he happened to look on the scans of like where to go in, and saw that it was upside down.
Oh my gosh.
And when they flipped it, it was actually the two same spots on
Oh
top of
my
my knee.
gosh. Oh my
So,
God.
yeah, me and my mom were thankful, like, but my dad was ready to unleash.
I'm sure. I'm
on
sure it
somebody.
was. Yeah.
So that was very like a close call that we had, but just thankful at the time, like no cancer. Like that was finally got a break.
Right.
And then they're like, we'll give you 2 weeks, like just to kind of recover from it. I'm like, let's just do this now. Like take me back and just. So I think it was like a day or two after that, we just decided, let's just do it. Just do the surgery before it spreads or gets worse. So.
And so you have your surgery, and then you wake up and reality sets in. Your leg is gone.
Right.
And how are you feeling?
I remember when I woke up, I didn't think they did it. Anybody that's an amputee, when you have your surgery, or if you do have a surgery for an amputation, they have to cut everything. So bones, muscles, nerves. So the brain still thinks that your leg is still there. So I remember waking up, and if you ever sat on your arm or your leg and it goes numb, that's exactly how it felt. So I was like, why didn't they amputate it? Why didn't they cut it off? What else happened? They're like, no, it's gone. Just look down. And I looked down and I was like, okay, it's gone. But yeah, learning to adjust to that new life was an eye opener, I guess you could say. Because I was a 14-year-old kid that this is going to be no big deal. I'll just do this and that. But it's a lot harder than what I thought, for sure, especially being above the knee.
And so how soon after your surgery were you able to find out that you could get a prosthetic leg, and how did that?
They tried fitting me while I was on chemo, which didn't work out because your counts are just gone. You're wiped out. So like if I got a cut or anything, I mean, if it got infected, it's bad news. So, and I was losing weight so much. I think I was down to like 95 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
That the end of my leg was really bony, and it's not supposed to be bony. So you could feel the femur where they cut, and you could feel the ridges of the saw because it was just bone.
Wow.
Then we don't want to be fitted like that.
Right.
And so I ended up getting a staph infection. And so I had to go back in and cut a little bit more of the bone off. And they were like, well, let's just wait till you're completely off treatment and your counts are back up. And that was about 8 months, which was very frustrating for me because I was ready to get up and go. But once I went to Scottish Rites in Dallas to get my first prosthesis. And I remember standing up on it for the first time, and I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I couldn't even take a step. It was basically like a newborn baby learning how to walk.
Wow.
It was very challenging. And then my goals was to get back to sports, basketball and baseball and all that. And I can't even take a step. So I'm like, not really questioning myself, but I'm like, how am I even going to walk?
Sure.
Let alone run and play.
And so tell us a little bit about, you and I chatted a little bit and about what it's like. I mean, obviously being a teenager is hard enough. And we talked about being 16, 17. That age is hard enough in school. I mean, in life, hormones, you're in school. It's hard enough as it is with all your limbs.
Right.
Tell us how it was going back to school with your prosthetic leg. Emotionally and socially.
Honestly, it was horrible. It was rough. I wasn't in a state that I am now where I'm confident and comfortable in who I am. At that time, I was extremely self-conscious, very low self-esteem. I didn't like the way I looked. I made a pact with my mom and parents that I wasn't going to go back to school until I had my hair back. So even though I was healthy and good, I didn't want to go until I had my hair back, but I just still I didn't feel like myself. And so even when I went back to school, I wore pants all through high school. and we know how hot it gets here. And I sweat it all the time because I was miserable. I still learning how to walk on my leg. So, you know, when the bell rings and kids are in the hallway, like I'm having to stay like close to a wall because, I mean, somebody may not be paying attention. If they bump me, I could fall, and I didn't want to be a scene or anything like that. And I just remember being very hard. Just that's when the reality hit in of like me looking different or being different is a reality that people deal with, especially an amputee. And so even though I was trying to hide who I was in my leg, I think people still knew, obviously, that because I would hear whispers in the hallway from other kids saying, "Oh, that's that cancer kid," or "That's that kid that's got one leg." And then, like we were talking about before, you know, you're 14, you're 15, girls are cute, and so you notice girls that are cute. And of course, I'm not going to say one word because I'm extremely shy and I don't like the way I look. But I just remember walking by this one girl, and she just went, "Ugh," like that. And I mean, it crushed me. Like I was just like, everything I was thinking in my head about myself, she just kind of solidified it for me. Like, yeah, I'm really this disgusting, low. Like I just did not think highly of myself at all. And my only outlet was sports. And then I tried to go back and play basketball, but I just wasn't ready. I was doing off season, but I was barely walking, let alone running. So I tried maybe one practice, but I was like, I'm not ready for this. And I would wait till everybody got out of the locker room to change, then I would change. But you have to wear shorts when you play basketball, and I wasn't ready to wear shorts.
Yeah,
because I didn't want people to stare or look at my leg. Baseball, you can wear pants, so I was like, I'll go back and play baseball. And so when I was on the field, my junior year, I felt a little more at home, I guess, because we had the same coaches that I had before I was sick. So they kind of knew me and my story. So they involved me in stuff. And I was kind of feeling like myself, but I was getting frustrated because I couldn't run yet. And I wasn't the player I was before. So that was frustrating. And then when my senior year came, we got all new coaching staff. And that's when the reality hit me that people do judge you by the way you look. Because we went, I think, and whatever, how many games. We didn't win one game all season, and they never involved me in practice, didn't play any games. And I'm just sitting on the bench, showing up every practice, trying to give everything I can and just not getting involved because they're just looking at me, just assuming that, oh, he can't do this or it's not good enough, which really brought on more frustration and all that. And then I finally had a confrontation with the coach before the last game saying, if you were never going to play me, just tell me, and I would have quit a long time ago. And he pitched me the last game, but I was frustrated because it was like a pity start. And it was really, really hard time.
Oh my gosh. You guys, we're going to take a really quick commercial break, and we will be right back to continue our conversation with Scott and take some questions and comments. Come on back.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Got a deck carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleburne, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleveland, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store. They got you covered.
When you're hungry for tender brisket or some delicious homemade cobbler, then look no further than Leach Brothers Barbecue, located at 1106 East Henderson in Cleveland, Texas. Leach Brothers has been family owned and operated since 1950. Take it from me, Taco Joe Orwinski. Todd and his family have been filling my belly breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a long time. Heck, I even have my own booth, open Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Come see them for dine-in, carry-out, and all your catering needs.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
Welcome back to the second half of the show here on Joco Community Radio. We are the voice of Johnson County, Texas, and live 365 days a year on the TuneIn Radio Network. To listen, simply go to tuneinjoco.com, where you can download the free app or listen live right there. We are also streaming simultaneously on Spreaker.com with select shows like this one, streaming to Facebook. All of our shows can also be found on any one of your favorite podcast platforms, such as Spotify and iTunes. Check out our lineup on jococommunityradio.com. Thanks for tuning in. This episode and more are brought to you by Next Level Claims, making your insurance work for you. Thank you, Next Level Claims, for supporting our shows. We are also on YouTube and several other platforms. And before we go into finishing our conversation with Scott, there are several people listening to the show, and if you are listening and you want to give some shout outs, some love, some support, please feel free to do that in the comments, and I'm going to read them or ask questions that you may have to Scott. Several people are watching. Mike Ross in our group says, have a great show. We have Jeff Brewer watching. He says, good day, mates. Don Crapo, that had to be a scary time in your life. God bless you, Scott. Dee Dee McCool says, you're an inspiration to so many, Scott. Don, again, he says, your story gives me strength for my battle. Don is battling cancer. He has cancer of the esophagus. Mike Ross says, Scott, I know I shared this with you. My dad had cancer as well. He lost his leg at the hip at the age of 16 in 1958. He turned 80 just a week ago. Like you, he did not let that keep him from doing anything that he had set his mind to do. He has never claimed to be or never has used being disabled as an excuse. I appreciate you sharing your story and showing others that life doesn't stop, and no matter what cards you are dealt with, you keep striving. I love you, brother.
I love you. That's awesome.
And he said that his dad still gets around. He uses his cane a little bit, but he loses it more often than he uses it. So you guys keep those comments coming, questions that you might have, any love and support that you have for Scott. We certainly do appreciate them. And again, Scott, I appreciate you for coming on and sharing your story, because I know that the reason why you do this, especially after reading, again, from your website and from your nonprofit, the reason why you're doing what you're doing. I know that it's not about you. It's about what God has done for you and what he's doing through you. And it is amazing. If you guys have the opportunity, you need to go to Scott's website. Again, it is www.scottodom.com. And his nonprofit website is www.abisports.org. And ABI stands for Amputee Basketball Invigorated. We're going to get to that in just a second. I want to talk to you first about when you were in high school and you finally confronted your coach at that last game. And you had said that you asked him if he were not going to ever play you, that he should have told you, and then you could have just quit. and then you started realizing that people do judge you by the way that you look. And how did you get through? I mean, high school is a tough time, and you being a lover of sports, that being that is my thing. Did you get depressed?
Oh, absolutely.
And what did you do during that? How did you pull yourself out of that depression? Because as unfortunate as it is, it's a reality.
Yeah.
People get depressed and wind up losing their lives or taking their lives.
Right.
What was your depression like, and how did you get out of it?
It was real hard, especially after that game, really, is what kind of tipped me over. And then high school ends, and then I don't know what I'm going to do with I'm 17. My only focus and everything, why I cut my leg off. Well, yeah, to save my life, but sports. I mean, I had this desire in me, like sports. It's all I ever wanted to do. And then once high school ends, I'm like, nobody's going to take me seriously as an athlete. I mean, I already experienced that. And so, my outlet really was a basketball court, just an empty basketball court. And so my parents had one for me at the house, and I would stay out there late so many times that my dad ended up having to put a floodlight up, because I would stay out there till 2, 3 in the morning just shooting. Anytime I got home from school, I would go straight out there, shoot, maybe come eat a little bit, shoot. It was just my getaway. And anybody, I think, that plays sports to a high level, when I get on a court or if I get on a field somewhere, I black out. Like I don't see anything outside the lines or the people I don't see any of that stuff. So for me, that was a getaway, almost like a therapy for me, to where I didn't have to think about my reality at the time. And so it was actually physical therapy for me too, because I'm still learning how to maneuver my prosthesis and run on it and all that stuff. So there was part of me that was like, I'm going to figure this out on my own. But the other part of me was like, I can let everything go and not think about the reality that I'm in. And I started working at Hughley when I was like 18 at the physical therapy as a tech in the fitness center. And then when the weather would get real bad, I actually would sneak in because I had a key, and I would stay up there and shoot till like 1, 2 in the morning on Friday. So I never partied. I never went out on the weekends. It never interested me, I think, because the reality of cancer and death, it just kind of like, I had to grow up really quick.
Right.
And just knowing the reality of that. So like that never interests me. And I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. I had a few, but it was really just sports related, like to play ball here and there. But that's where all these visions started coming to me of like, of me playing somewhere or playing in front of a crowd. But I was like, I just didn't know what all that meant at the time. And I got asked to go play at a church through a friend that I played ball with. He said he played Thursday night at this church called Reach Prairie. And so he kept asking me to come. I was like, dude, I didn't go to church. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't know. I just felt uncomfortable. My only exposure to stuff like that was when I was sick and people were coming to pray for me. I thought because people were praying for me, I was dying. So that's my association with that, is like death and it's not good, or I'm not good enough.
Right.
But he was like, man, we're just going to play basketball. It'll be all right. So I went up there and played, and it was fun. It was like a small group of guys. It wasn't like everybody come. It was just kind of selected few people. But I remember we played for about an hour, and they stopped and they said, well, we're going to do a devotional real quick and then we'll play again. And I was like, what is a devotional? Because I would play for like 3 or 4 hours. I just wanted to play. I just loved it. The more I was getting better on my prosthesis, the more like the desire I had, like, I just want to keep getting better and playing. But this was the time where I was hearing, God's word and hearing stuff. And it was all starting to kind of click with me of like what I've been through, what I've been going through, all these visions I was having. I was like, it just started like kind of eye-opening, because I was never exposed to that before. And I had an organization that I started with a group of amputees, where we were traveling the country, playing basketball, going to schools, going to whatever, entering 3-on-3 tournaments. We played in LA at the Nike Live. like we were the only amputees. So it was more of like a never give up, you can do anything message. But the more I was hearing God's word, the more I was learning and wanting to know more about it, I had this confliction with me. I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And after every like event I did, or after every talk I would do, there would always be one kid that would come up like at the very end. He would kind of wait till everybody wanted to say hi or whatever. There was always one kid at all these events that was either struggling with something, had self-esteem issues that I would talk about, or just something. And they would just say how much, the talk really was helping them because they were going through the same feelings I went through and all that stuff. I even had one girl say that she was on the verge of committing suicide, and that just hearing our stories was like impacting to her. And that's when it sounds like, this isn't me. Like, I didn't see myself as like that. Like, my story shouldn't save you. It wasn't clicking with me at the time. And I remember I got asked to go play in that pro game up in Michigan. And when they called me about it, I thought it was a joke because I was like, I'm short, I'm white, I have one leg. Like, there's no way I'm playing in a professional basketball game. They're like, no, we love what you do. Like, it'll be good. I was like, I'm a white dude. Like, I don't have one leg. Like, and of course I get there, and I mean, these guys are they're going to go play one day in the NBA.
Wow.
Gonna go play overseas. And there's a picture of me where we're standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm the white dude, the small white dude, and all these monsters over me. But I remember playing, and I played in a lot of gyms all over the country, and at this gym that we played in, there was Jesus on a cross above the goal. And I was fixated on that the whole time I got in that gym. Because I was like, okay, I'm here. I know I'm not going to drop 40 points or a triple double. Like, I'm here for a reason. Like, I don't know what it is.
Wow.
And it was hitting me like this was my dream, like to play in a professional game, to be a professional athlete. I was living that dream. But when I'm in that, I'm like, this isn't what this is about. Everything I've been through is not to get to this point. And I remember after the game, another kid come up. And he was probably 3 years old. He had this big basketball, and his mom was like, he could not take his eyes off of you. Like, you don't know how much you've impacted him, just you out there playing basketball. And that's when it's like, all right, I'm leaving this, and I'm going to do something where I can maybe glorify him and do something that I feel I can make a bigger impact, instead of me just saying, hey, look, I'm playing basketball with one leg. And that's when I created the nonprofit and all that after that.
But it took all of that. Going to, okay, first of all, it's so cool that you played on a professional team. But God's plans are so much bigger. So like, right, your whole life up till then was, hoping and focusing on playing in a professional basketball game or playing sports professionally. And but then you go through all that, and God is so good, because at that moment, here you're in this gym, and there's this, this cross, this crucifix, and boom, all of a sudden here comes this young man, and then God says to you, or you hear God that you're going to stop doing this. This is not what you are supposed to be doing. That you want to do more. And so tell us what that is.
I mean, it really was, it was like, I didn't go through cancer. I didn't go through losing my leg, overcoming all that, learn how to run, all that, just to play sports.
Right.
That's very selfish. That's not what this is about. And it took me going through all these experiences to get that, just because I think I just wasn't aware of it. It's not that I was, egotistic or anything. I just didn't know until it would like finally hit me. And so I was like going through cancer, going through all this, because people would ask me all the time, like, how did you do it? Like, how do you like how do you get through this? How do you walk on this? How do you run? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just do it. I don't know. And that's when the whole kids book came into play, where anytime I would go talk to these kids, I was always asked, you should write a kids book. You should write a kids book. And I was just, again, the self-esteem that I have, I was like, I just don't think it would work. I'm just not that good at it. I don't think it would work. And getting the messages here and there, it's not all the time I get messages, but I would get them here and there from like a mom and their kids going through treatment. And so I could feel like God, like telling me, like, dude, just trust me, just do
Right.
it. And so I was in the middle of writing it, and I stopped because I could feel myself like kind of going through my story, and I
Mhm.
was like, I don't want to revert back to. I don't want to share my story of like overcoming. I want it to be more of a message, a powerful message that really doesn't reflect me, but reflects what he's done
Mhm.
through me.
Mhm.
And so that's when I was remember driving, and music is really, I'm really into music. And so I forgot what song I was listening to, and it just hit me of like how the message of the book and like the message of really everything that's tied together.
Mhm.
Cause I, like, again, I get asked, especially as an amputee, like it's extremely hard to walk, to learn how to walk, especially as above the knee, let
Mhm.
alone run, play basketball. I mean, it took me months just to learn how to walk without a cane or anything. It took me years to learn how to run. And so
Wow.
when you first stand up, it's very scary because it's something new. It's a foreign object to your body.
Right.
And so like I just remember I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't trust this. Like this is foreign to me. I don't know anything about this. So it's really about me having to use this every day.
Mhm.
Because if I were just to get it and put it in my closet and get it out every now and then, it does no good. It does me no
Right.
good. It's going to take a long time. So I had to go through a lot of physical therapy, and they're teaching me how to walk. So the limb that I have a socket. So when I kick my leg forward, the knee bends. And then when I swing it back, it makes a stiff to where if I plant my heel, then I'm able to walk on it where it won't bend.
Mhm.
Now, technology is not as advanced as it was back in 98. So it was more like a door hinge that my
Mhm.
knee was. So it was very scary where if I didn't plant my heel just right, my knee was going to buckle.
Oh my gosh.
So it took me a lot of practice to trust that,
Mhm.
that stance on it. And so as I'm learning this, when I'm very first walking, like I said, when I was in school, I was very scared, very fearful. I was always looking down at my feet because I didn't know where they were going to go.
Mhm.
I didn't know if my heel was going to be right. I wanted to make sure that this was going to work.
Right.
So I had no trust in this prosthesis.
Right.
Whereas now when people see me walking, running, playing basketball, I never look down. I just do what I do because I completely trust this leg.
Mhm.
And so going through all that and learning how to use that, I tell people that's kind of like our same relationship with Christ. It's like in the beginning, it was very scary. I didn't know anything about it, but every day I have a choice. I don't have to put my prosthesis on. It's a choice for me to do this. I can sit in a wheelchair. I can sit at home. I can feel sorry for myself. But me making this choice every morning, because it sits next to my bed, I'm making the choice. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to trust this. I'm going to know my foot's there. I'm just going to let it do its thing. And I'm going to do what I'm called to do. And then I'll get through, whatever I need to get through. If it's raining outside, I know it's there. I know it's not going to buckle because I've spent so much time with it and had this relationship with it that I just know I fully trust it.
Mhm.
And I think the same goes, it's every day is a choice with our relationship with Christ. Like every day we have a choice where we can trust him, and no matter what the day may bring, no matter how hard it may get, like, he's going to be there. He's going to get us through this. It may be hard, but he is there.
Mhm.
Or we can choose to be selfish and arrogant and be like, I can do this on my own. Cause I can try to control this on my own, but I'm going to fall and I'm going to end up on my butt.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where the kids book came into play. I called it Me and JC, where the kid's having a hard time learning how to walk. And then the leg comes to life and he can only hear the voice. And the voice is like, just trust me. I have plans for you. You just need to learn to trust me and we can get through that. I have big plans for you. And so once he builds that relationship with JC, the leg, then he sees that me playing sports is not really what it's all about. It's about using a sport like basketball or something to show people and affect other people through that, and God using that to help other people. And
Absolutely.
so not for a trophy or anything like that, but to reach other people and bring glory to him. So
wow. And so where can people purchase your book, Me and JC?
It's on my website, on scottaodom.com.
Okay.
I can get them on there. Or I think it's on Amazon and stuff, but the website's usually probably a good spot.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit. I know we're running close to end of time, and I hate it, but tell us a little bit about your organization and what impact that had on other families. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my nonprofit is ABI. When I left that organization, like I said, I started a nonprofit, and I put on charity basketball games for kids that are going through cancer or limb loss or both. We've done about 13 events for kids. So each game, we're raising funds for a specific kid.
Mhm.
So we've done 13 kids, and I think with no sponsor, no back, because nobody really knows what ABI is,
Mhm.
except for people maybe on my page. But we've been able to raise about 45,000, and it's 100% given to these families. They either help with medical costs, bills, whatever it is that they may be going through. And so I'm actually trying to set one up here in Burleson because there's a kid that I'm playing for, I wanting to play for in January. And so we're looking to do it here and just trying to get the community support to back it up, just to try to make this successful as possible. Because just with raising money, yes, it helps with the families going through something like that, but just to give them hope,
Mhm.
just to see other people out there and people that have been in their situation, just to bring them hope in a fun day and a fun night, just to, get out of the reality that they may be in, and then let them know that there's people out there that love and care about them, and just make it a
Yeah.
fun event.
So how could someone like me help? What can those of us that are listening, what can we do to help your organization?
So we have the website abisports.org. When we do have an event, our biggest thing is finding a gym. We have a real hard time finding a gym. So anybody that's in the schools that could plug us in would be great. And then we always have like an auction. So anybody, businesses or anything that likes to donate auction items, raffle items is always great. And really just getting the word out, because I mean, there's a lot of kids I want to play for. It's just we just don't really have the resources, like I said, gyms or the connections with people to do all these events. So I have one now that I'm setting up in January, like I said, for this kid here in Burleson. So hopefully it'll be good.
I hope so too. You had shared, and again, I know we're running close to being out of time. Tell me about the kids when you would go to camps in the summer. Tell me about how the children there that have cancer or other illnesses, how is their demeanor? How are the kids that you've interacted with?
Yeah, so I go to a camp every summer called Camp Sanguinity. It's through Cook Children's, but it's a camp for kids with cancer and blood disorders. So you would think a camp like this, our kids going through something like that, they would be really, just struggling or have, but these are some of the most joyful, faithful, loving Jesus kids I've ever met in my life. And that's what's kind of inspired me to continue with my journey, is just to see them in worse situations that I'm in, are going through worse or going through cancer 2 or 3 times because it's relapsed, or even some kids that are terminal and they're just got a big smile on their face, they're loving life and happy, and just because they love Jesus, they're happy, and they know where they're going, like they're at peace. And it's something you just don't really experience around in real life. So every time I would go to that camp, because I went as a camper, but every time I go back as a counselor, I mean, it's a week that just recharges me. Because I mean, life obviously can get all of us, and jobs and stress and all that, but you're around these kids that you're really there to help, but they're helping you because they're just so joyful and happy and stuff. And I remember one kid specifically that we were talking about. He had a brain tumor, and he was in my cabin, I think, for like 2 or 3 years. And he was always cracking jokes. His speech was slurred because of the tumor. He had to have glasses because he couldn't see without his glasses, but he was always cracking jokes. And, I always had to help him get his clothes out of the suitcase and ask him what he wanted to wear. And it was in the summertime, but one day he wanted to wear his cowboy boots, his jeans, and his button-down shirt. And I was like, dude, it's like 100 degrees outside. And he's like, Scott, I'm doing this for the chicks. I was like, say no more. I got you. But every night he would want to talk about his day. And so he would want me to sit on the floor, and he would just want to talk about it. And so we would talk, and then he would just start crying towards the end because he's like, I don't want to go home. And I was like, what do you mean, man? He's like, man, this place is paradise. He's like, I love it here. Like, this is paradise. Like, there's no fighting. There's all races are together. There's no part. That's just everybody loving on everybody. Everybody just in a joyful mood. Like, even though there's the worst situations going on with these kids, it's everybody's just, there's no tears at this camp. And this kid was like, when I go back home, and he would tell me everything he has to deal with other kids, family, whatever. And I'm just like, I know, man, I get it. Like, I understand. But that week is so special for these kids. I don't think people really realize, like, it's a big getaway, but it's something that, like I said, recharges them. But it's some of the most joyful, like, spirit-filled people not just kids, but people I've ever met that have inspired me to continue doing what I'm doing.
Man,
So that's why I go back every year.
I love that. And it is like a little bit of like heaven on earth almost, you know, where you go to a place where everyone is happy. There's no judgment, no race, no religion,
Right.
just all love. I mean, of course, all of love is God and Jesus Christ. But what a place to be. I'd cry too if I had to leave, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and no wonder you go back every
Yeah, I mean, these
summer.
kids are a big inspiration to me. I remember when I did one of my games, I had all their names, all the kids that I played for, or kids that have passed away, just because they've touched my life more than, you know, me doing these events for them. They touched my life way more than I would ever touch theirs, just because they've inspired me so much. So that's why I continue at the age I'm at, still trying to go at this, because I want to do everything I can for these kids. One, because I've been there, but I want to give back as much as I can to them.
Absolutely. So in the last minute that we have, those of you that are listening, I will put the website in the comments as well as the nonprofit organization in the comments. And we have just like a minute. I want to ask you really quickly, who is Scott Odom today?
Oh, I am confident. I'm much more confident than I was, and I'm blessed. I'm very grateful. I have a loving wife, parents still supportive, and me and my wife are going through a big thing right now with being a foster parents. So being a daddy is something I've always wanted, and hopefully one day, you know, we have that opportunity to adopt. But it's just, I mean, it's turned my life upside down to where it's just touched me so much that it's something that I never thought was possible, because chemo took that away from me, but God made a way to where He's given me a gift to take care of this little girl for right now. And right now we're just loving that experience. So,
well, you've just given everyone that's listened and everyone that will listen a gift of hope through your story, a gift of perseverance, and that God is good all the time.
Yes, ma'am, all the time.
Thank you so much, Scott, for coming on. I so appreciate it. And I pray for you and your wife and your family and your children to come.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for listening. You guys have a good night. Don't forget, Holler and Swaller's coming up next.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. A new poll shows growing voter distrust of the media when it comes to covering political news. Bob Agnew reports.
53% of those responding to the latest Rasmussen poll say they don't trust the political news they're getting. That's up from 43% who said the same back in July. Only 33% say they trust political news stories they're hearing. That's down from 37% who said the same in July.